The message came through at 2:47 a.m. on a Tuesday, the kind of hour when you're either dead asleep or wide awake wondering where your life went wrong. I was the latter, scrolling through quarterly reports when my phone lit up with Laura Mitchell's name. We hadn't spoken in 3 months, not since the incident that turned my entire social circle into strangers. "Alex, I know it's late, but I need to tell you something. Stephen has been lying about what happened with the business deal. I saw the real emails tonight when I was helping him set up his new laptop. You never betrayed anyone." I'm sorry I believed him. I stared at that message for 20 minutes before typing back a simple, "Thanks for letting me know." But inside, something was already shifting, a gear clicking into place that had been grinding uselessly for months. Stephen Donovan had played his cards well, I'd give him that. But he'd made one crucial mistake. He'd assumed I was down for good. It started 18 months ago when Stephen and I were still best friends, back when our group met every Friday at Henderson's bar and talked about everything except the fact that most of us were pushing 30 and still living like college kids. Stephen worked in marketing for some mid-tier tech company, always talking about the big deals he was working on, the connections he was making. I ran a small consulting firm, nothing flashy, but it paid well and kept me busy. The opportunity came through my client network. A startup called Nexus Digital was looking for someone to handle their marketing launch. Big budget, bigger potential, the kind of contract that could set someone up for years. They'd approached me first, but marketing wasn't my specialty. I knew someone who might be perfect for it, though. Someone who'd been complaining for months about being stuck in corporate middle management, someone who'd always said he just needed one break to prove himself. I called Stephen that same afternoon. "I've got something that might interest you," I said, and laid out the whole thing. The startup, the budget, the timeline. His end of the conversation was mostly silence and the occasional, "Holy shit, are you serious?" "Here's the thing," I told him. "They came to me, but this is your wheelhouse, not mine. I can make the introduction, but you'd need to pitch them yourself. Fair warning though, they're particular about who they work with. If you mess this up, it reflects on me too." Stephen was practically vibrating through the phone. "Dude, you have no idea what this means. I've been waiting for something like this for years. I won't let you down, I promise." The introduction went well. Stephen impressed them in the initial meeting, got called back for a second round, then a third. Within 2 weeks, he had a preliminary contract worth more than he'd made in the previous year. I was genuinely happy for him. We celebrated at Henderson's that Friday, bought rounds for the whole group, and Stephen gave this speech about friendship and loyalty that had half the bar misty-eyed. "To Alex Brennan," he said, raising his beer, "for believing in me when I didn't believe in myself. I should have seen the signs." The way he started name-dropping his new clients in conversations, how he'd correct people when they mentioned I'd helped him get the connection, small things that felt off but not worth confronting. Stephen had always been competitive, but success was changing him in ways I didn't recognize yet. The problem started about 6 weeks into his contract. Nexus Digital called me directly, which was unusual since I'd stepped back once Stephen was hired. Their CEO, Jennifer Walsh, sounded frustrated. "Alex, we need to talk about Stephen. The campaign he delivered isn't what we discussed. It's not even close." She laid out the issues: missed deadlines, creative work that didn't match their brand, a social media strategy that seemed lifted wholesale from one of their competitors. Worse, when they'd tried to give him feedback, Stephen had become defensive, argumentative. "Look, we respect that you recommended him," Jennifer said, "but we're considering terminating the contract. Before we do that, we wanted to give you a chance to, I don't know, help us figure out if this is salvageable." I spent the weekend going through Stephen's deliverables. It was bad. Not just unprofessional, but lazy. Templates he'd barely customized, copy that read like it had been run through a translation app twice, strategy documents that were more buzzword bingo than actual planning. This wasn't the work of someone who was in over their head. This was the work of someone who thought he could coast on the strength of the connection. I called Stephen on Sunday evening. "We need to talk about the Nexus project." "What about it?" His tone was immediately defensive. "They're not happy with the work, Stephen. They called me directly. Of course they did. Can't handle giving feedback like adults, have to run to daddy instead. That stopped me cold. Excuse me. You heard me. They knew you'd take their side anyway. What side? Stephen, I've seen the work. It's not up to standard. They have legitimate concerns. Right. Of course you'd say that. Can't stand seeing me succeed, can you? The conversation went downhill from there. Stephen accused me of undermining him, of trying to sabotage his big break, because I was jealous. I told him he was being paranoid and unprofessional. He hung up on me. Nexus Digital terminated his contract 3 days later. That should have been the end of it. A friendship strained, maybe, but something we could work through once Stephen got past his wounded pride. I was wrong. The story Stephen told our friends was different. In his version, I'd grown jealous of his success and had gone behind his back to poison Nexus Digital against him. He had emails, he said, proving that I'd been feeding them negative information about his work, telling them he wasn't qualified, sabotaging him from the beginning. Alex set me up to fail, he told anyone who would listen. Made the introduction knowing they'd never actually give me a fair shot, just so he could look like the good guy while making sure I'd crash and burn. The worst part was how well it worked. Our friend group had always been Stephen's more than mine anyway. He was the social connector, the one who organized everything, remembered everyone's birthdays, kept the group chat active. I was the quiet one, the one people liked well enough but didn't really know. When it came to choosing sides, the choice was obvious. Sophia stopped responding to my texts. Carson Rodriguez unfriended me on social media. Lisa Park blocked my number entirely. One by one, 15 years of friendships evaporated. They didn't ask for my side of the story. They didn't question Stephen's narrative. They just disappeared. The Friday night gatherings at Henderson's continued without me. I'd drive past sometimes and see them all there, laughing and drinking like nothing had changed. Like I'd never existed. I tried to defend myself at first. Sent a few messages to the people I'd been closest to, trying to explain what had really happened. Carson actually responded once, a short text that said, "Look man, I don't want to get in the middle of this. Whatever happened between you and Stephen, just sort it out." But there was nothing to sort out. Stephen had won before I'd even realized we were fighting. For months, I told myself it didn't matter. These people had been willing to believe the worst about me without even asking for my perspective. Maybe they weren't real friends anyway. Maybe I was better off without them. I threw myself into work, took on bigger clients, made more money. I was fine. I was moving on. Except late at night, scrolling through social media and seeing pictures from gatherings I wasn't invited to, birthdays I didn't know about, inside jokes I was no longer part of. It felt like watching my own funeral from across the street. Then came Laura's message, and everything changed. I'd been patient for months, playing the long game without even knowing I was playing. But Stephen had made a crucial error. He'd kept the evidence of his lies. Not just the fake emails he'd claimed proved my betrayal, but the real ones too. The ones where Nexus Digital had tried to work with him, where they'd given him multiple chances to improve, where they'd expressed genuine confusion about why his work was so different from what they'd discussed. Laura had seen it all while trying to help Stephen transfer files to his new laptop. She'd recognized my email address in the real chain and realized the discrepancy. Stephen hadn't just lied about what happened, he'd manufactured evidence to support his lie. "There are screenshots of everything," Laura texted me the next day. The real emails, the fake ones he created, even a folder labeled Alex Backup Story, with different versions of what he was going to tell people. I saved copies before he realized what I'd seen. That's when I knew exactly what I was going to do. I didn't confront Stephen directly. I didn't send angry messages to our former friends. Instead, I started small, strategic. I reached out to Jennifer Walsh at Nexus Digital. "Jennifer, I know it's been a while since the Stephen situation, but I wanted to follow up on something. I recently learned that there may have been some miscommunication about my role in what happened. Would you be willing to have a brief conversation about it? Jennifer was more than willing. In fact, she was relieved. Apparently, Stephen had been spreading his version of events in their industry circles too, suggesting that I was untrustworthy, that I sabotaged clients. It had started affecting my reputation. We never believed it, Jennifer said during our call. Your referral came with such strong recommendations, and the work you'd done for us before was excellent. But Stephen was very convincing, had what looked like email evidence. I think I can help clear some things up, I said. I sent Jennifer the real email chain that Laura had provided, along with Stephen's fabricated versions. The contrast was stark. In the real emails, I tried to help mediate between Stephen and Nexus, suggesting compromises, encouraging both sides to find common ground. In Stephen's fake versions, I was undermining him at every turn. This is actually shocking, Jennifer said when she called me back. He didn't just lie to your friends. He's been using this fabricated story to explain away his professional failures. We've had other companies ask us about him, and we've been honest about our experience. If he's telling people you sabotaged him, he is. And I think it's time people knew the truth. Jennifer agreed to provide a statement about what had really happened, a professional account of Stephen's contract and termination that would make it clear I'd had no role in his failure. But that was just the beginning. I reached out to 2 other companies Stephen had worked with since Nexus, companies where his contracts had also ended badly. Same pattern, subpar work, defensive attitude, missed deadlines. And in both cases, Stephen had used me as his excuse, claiming I'd somehow interfered. He told us you'd been spreading rumors in the industry, said Kevin Torres, a creative director at one of the agencies. Said you were jealous of his success and trying to tank his career. We felt bad for him, honestly. Did he show you any evidence of this? I asked. Some emails, yeah. Looked pretty damning. I'd love to see those emails, if you still have them. The fabricated emails Stephen had shown Kevin were different from the ones he'd created for the Nexus situation, but the pattern was the same. Conversations that had never happened, screenshots that were just convincing enough to pass casual inspection but fell apart under scrutiny. By the end of the week, I had statements from 3 companies, all confirming that Stephen had used false evidence to blame me for his professional failures. I had the real email chains, the fake ones, and testimony from people who'd seen both. But I still wasn't ready to move. Stephen had spent months building his narrative, letting it take root, watching it grow. If I was going to tear it down, I needed to do it right. The opportunity came through an unexpected source, Stephen himself. He'd been posting on social media about his new venture, a marketing consultancy he was launching. Big promises, impressive client testimonials, a website that looked professional enough to fool potential investors. He was hosting a launch party, inviting everyone from our old friend group, industry contacts, potential clients, including me. The invitation came through LinkedIn, probably sent to everyone in his professional network without much thought. Join me as I celebrate the launch of Donovan Marketing Solutions, it read. After overcoming some challenges and betrayals in the past year, I'm excited to start this new chapter. Even in his moment of triumph, he couldn't resist taking a shot. I RSVP'd yes. The party was at a trendy rooftop bar downtown, the kind of place that charges $20 for a cocktail and makes you feel sophisticated for paying it. Stephen had clearly spent money on this event. Professional photographer, catered appetizers, branded materials everywhere. He was working the room like a politician, shaking hands, making promises, telling his story of overcoming adversity. I arrived early, before most of the crowd, and positioned myself near the bar where I could watch the room fill up. Our old friend group showed up together, just like they used to. Sophia, Carson, Lisa, even Laura, though she avoided eye contact with Stephen and kept glancing nervously around the room. Stephen spotted me about an hour into the event. I watched his face cycle through surprise, confusion, and then something that looked almost like panic before settling into forced confidence. He made his way over, drink in hand, smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. Alex. I wasn't sure you'd actually show up. Wouldn't miss it, I said. Congratulations on the new venture. Must be exciting to start fresh. Yeah, well, sometimes you have to rebuild after people try to tear you down. Speaking of rebuilding, I said, pulling out my phone, I've been doing some rebuilding of my own. Reputation management, you might call it. Stephen's smile faltered slightly. What do you mean? I mean I've been talking to some mutual contacts. Jennifer Walsh at Nexus Digital, Kevin Torres at Creative Dynamics, Maria Santos at Brightline Agency. Interesting conversations. The color drained from Stephen's face. I don't know what you think you're. They all had questions about those emails you showed them. The ones where I was supposedly sabotaging you. Funny thing about digital forensics these days, Stephen. Really easy to spot fabricated metadata when you know what to look for. Stephen stepped closer, his voice dropping to a whisper. You need to stop this right now. Stop what? Telling the truth? The way you should have 18 months ago. Alex, I'm warning you. You're warning me? I laughed, loud enough that a few nearby conversations paused. Stephen, you spent the better part of 2 years destroying my reputation with lies. You turned my friends against me, damaged my professional relationships, made me question my own memory of events. And now you're warning me. The photographer was nearby, capturing candid moments from the party. I waved him over. Excuse me, could you get a picture of me and Stephen here? Old friends reuniting, you know how it is. Stephen looked trapped, unable to refuse without making a scene, unable to accept without legitimizing my presence at his event. He forced a smile as the camera flashed. Perfect, I said. That one's going to be worth keeping. 20 minutes later, I was at the microphone. Stephen had planned a short speech for the middle of the evening, thanking everyone for their support, talking about his vision for the company. I'd asked the bartender to let me make a quick toast first. Just something short for an old friend. Money changed hands. Arrangements were made. Good evening, everyone, I said, feedback from the microphone cutting through the party noise. For those who don't know me, I'm Alex Brennan. Stephen and I go way back. The room quieted, faces turning toward me with curiosity. Stephen was near the back, trapped by the crowd, his expression cycling between panic and rage. I wanted to take a moment to acknowledge something that Stephen mentioned in his invitation, overcoming betrayals. It takes real strength to overcome betrayal, especially when you're the one who's been betrayed. I paused, letting that sink in, watching comprehension dawn on faces throughout the room. See, about 18 months ago, I helped Stephen get connected with a potential client. Big opportunity, could have changed his career. Unfortunately, things didn't work out. The client wasn't satisfied with his work, and his contract was terminated. Stephen was pushing through the crowd now, trying to reach the front, but people were listening, blocking his path without realizing it. Now, that happens in business sometimes. Projects don't work out, clients aren't happy, we move on. But Stephen decided to tell a different story. He told people that I had sabotaged him, that I'd betrayed our friendship out of jealousy. He had emails to prove it. I pulled out my phone, the screenshots Laura had provided clearly visible on the screen. The thing about emails, though, is that they leave traces. Digital fingerprints. Metadata. And when you fabricate them, well, it's really easy to tell. The room was completely silent now. I could see Sophia and Carson near the front, their faces a mixture of confusion and dawning realization. I've spent the past week talking to the companies Stephen has worked with since then. Turns out, he's been telling the same story everywhere. Every failed contract, every dissatisfied client, every professional setback was my fault. And he had emails to prove that too. Stephen had finally made it to the front of the crowd. His face was red, hands clenched into fists. You son of a bitch, he started, but I kept talking. The real tragedy isn't that Stephen lied to protect his ego. It's that he was so convincing that people I'd known for 15 years, people I'd trusted and supported and celebrated with, chose to believe his story without ever asking for mine. I looked out at the crowd, making eye contact with faces I recognized from years of friendship. Jennifer Walsh from Nexus Digital is here tonight, actually. Jennifer, would you mind confirming for everyone what really happened with Steven's contract? Jennifer stepped forward, professional and composed. Steven's contract was terminated due to substandard work and missed deadlines. Alex Brennan had no involvement in our decision beyond making the initial introduction. The room erupted. Not applause, but the kind of shocked murmur that happens when a lie unravels in public. Steven was shouting something, but his voice was lost in the noise. I handed the microphone back to the bartender and walked toward the exit, stopping only when Sophia caught my arm. Alex, we didn't know. Why didn't you tell us? I looked at her for a long moment, this person who'd been one of my closest friends for over a decade. I tried, I said. But you'd already chosen who to believe. I left the party to the sound of chaos behind me. Raised voices, arguments, the kind of social implosion that Steven had orchestrated for me 18 months earlier. But this time, he was at the center of it. The fallout was swift and complete. By the next morning, Steven's social media accounts were deactivated. His company website was down. The professional network he'd spent years building was calling his credibility into question. Laura texted me that evening. He's trying to say you hacked his computer, that you planted the fake emails. No one's buying it. Carson and Sophia want to talk to you. I didn't respond immediately. For months, I'd wanted nothing more than for my friends to realize they'd been wrong, to come back and apologize, to restore what Steven had destroyed. But sitting in my apartment, looking at Laura's message, I realized something had shifted. The person who had needed their validation, who had been hurt by their abandonment, wasn't who I was anymore. I'd built something new in the space their absence had created. Better work relationships, deeper friendships with people who knew the whole story, a sense of self that didn't depend on being liked by people who were so quick to think the worst of me. 3 days later, Sophia called. I let it go to voicemail. Alex, I know you probably don't want to hear from me, but I need to apologize. We all do. What Steven did was unforgivable, and the way we treated you. God, I'm so sorry. I know sorry doesn't fix 18 months of friendship lost, but we want to try to make things right. Please call me back. I saved the message but didn't return the call. Not yet. A week later, Carson sent a long text explaining how guilty he felt, how Steven had been so convincing, how they'd all been manipulated. Lisa left a voicemail crying about how much she'd missed me, how the group hadn't been the same. I appreciated the apologies, but they felt like closing credits on a movie I'd already walked out of. Steven tried to reach out once, about 2 weeks after the party. A single text message, "You destroyed my life over a misunderstanding. I hope you're happy." I stared at that message for a while, thinking about all the responses I could send. About pointing out that he'd destroyed his own life with his lies, that I'd simply revealed the truth. About reminding him of the 18 months I'd spent wondering if I was crazy, if I'd imagined the friendship I thought we'd had. Instead, I typed back, "No misunderstanding. Just consequences." Then I blocked his number. 6 months later, I ran into Jennifer Walsh at a coffee shop downtown. She updated me on Steven's situation. He'd tried to rebuild under a different company name, but the industry was small and word had spread. His reputation was effectively destroyed. I heard he moved back in with his parents, she said. Trying to start over somewhere else. I felt something that might have been sympathy, but it passed quickly. "What about you?" Jennifer asked. "How are you doing?" "Better," I said, and meant it. A lot better. That evening, I finally called Sophia back. "Alex. Oh my God, I can't believe you're calling. I got your messages," I said. "All of them. We've been hoping you'd reach out. We know we messed up, we know we can't just go back to how things were, but maybe we could start over? Try to rebuild." I thought about that for a moment. About Friday nights at Henderson's, about inside jokes and shared history, about the comfort of familiar faces and predictable routines. "I don't think so," I said finally. "Please, Alex. We were wrong, we admit that. Steven manipulated all of us. But we're family, you know? We've been friends for 15 years. We were friends for 15 years, I corrected. But family doesn't abandon each other based on lies. Family asks questions. Family gives the benefit of the doubt. Sophia was quiet for a long time. When she spoke again, her voice was small. So that's it? 15 years of friendship just over. It was over 18 months ago, I said. You just didn't tell me. After I hung up, I sat in my apartment looking out at the city lights, thinking about the difference between loneliness and solitude. I'd been lonely for months after Steven's betrayal, missing the noise and chaos of group dinners and shared plans. But solitude was different. Solitude was peaceful. My phone buzzed with a text from Laura. Saw Sophia posted something cryptic about closed chapters and new beginnings. I'm guessing you talked to her. Yeah, I typed back. How do you feel about it? I thought about that question for a while before responding. Free. The next morning, I deleted the group chat that had been silent for 18 months, unfriended the people who had already unfriended me in their hearts, and cleared out the last digital remnants of friendships that had died the moment they chose Steven's lies over my truth. It wasn't revenge, not really. Revenge would have been trying to hurt them the way they'd hurt me. This was just acceptance, accepting that some betrayals can't be forgiven, some bridges can't be rebuilt, and some people show you who they really are when the stakes are low and the choice is easy. Steven had given me an unexpected gift in his cruelty. He'd shown me what shallow loyalty looked like, what fair-weather friendship cost, and what I was worth to people who claimed to care about me. The price had been high, but the education had been invaluable. And somewhere in the quiet of my new life, I realized I'd never been happier.
Did you love watching Karma strike back against this manipulative friend? Subscribe to Karma's Counter-Strike for more epic revenge stories, and share your own toxic friendship experience in the comments below.